Welcome everybody. Today we are having a hands-on session and going to build a full stack application with SAP Build Apps. We have divided the exercise in two parts. In the first part, we are going to create the backend that we need for our application. In the second part, we are going to create the front end that will connect to the backend, and then in the end, we will have a preview to show the results in the application. Before we start really getting our hands dirty, I will show you the key capabilities of SAP Build Apps, what you maybe know, what is formally called SAP AppGyver. With SAP Build, we have now a whole portfolio that covers all our low-code, no-code solutions. With SAP Build Apps, we really want to empower our citizen developers to create their own applications so that we have an application development that can empower citizen developers, but also professional developers to boost their productivity. But also, SAP Build Process Automation is included into the Build Portfolio, where you can easily create processes, automation, and also workflows. And of course, you can connect these workflows and processes to the SAP Build Apps application, and you just trigger the processes directly in your Build Apps. And additionally, we have SAP Build Workzone, which is the layer on top of it, where you can provide all your applications to your end users in a unified way, where you can easily design your business sites and create a central portal where all your applications are located. Today, we will focus on SAP Build Apps, where you can create your application. And SAP Build Apps is more than SAP AppGyver. With SAP AppGyver, you were able to create only the front-end applications. You still have needed some APIs like a Node Data Service or REST API to consume data. With SAP Build Apps, we introduced the Visual Cloud Functions, where you can create your own backend services that can be used in your applications. SAP Build Apps is located in the no-code area. So it's really should empower all kind of users to create their own application. But of course, this should not be hindering professional developers to create their apps in a faster time. So we really want to empower with SAP Build Apps everybody to create their own applications. And yesterday at TechEd, we saw a lot of examples of applications that can be created with it. But let me show you some key capabilities and features of SAP Build Apps. Of course, we have a lot of extensive UI components that you can easily drag and drop into your applications. You can use enterprise-grade governance features from BTP, like PPP Authentication, that you can consume destinations easily. You can collaborate easily to share your project with professional developers if you are stuck at a specific point. And also, we have the possibility to create multi-channel applications. So you start creating one application, and in the end, you decide, do you want to have a mobile app, a real native iOS or Android app, or do you want to provide your application as web app on BTP? So this is all possible with SAP Build Apps. And of course, you can connect to other services from our Build Portfolio, like SAP Build Process Automation, or integrate the application into Workzone. Let's have a closer look on the functionalities. So the main entry point that we also use today is what we are calling the lobby. In the lobby, you are creating your projects, and there you can create SAP Build Apps project. You can create your backends with Visual Cloud Functions, and you can also create your processes with SAP Build Process Automation. And of course, this is also the point where you are able to share your projects with your colleagues, or maybe with your IT, that you can get some help from professional developers. Let's have a closer look on the key capabilities of the front end of SAP Build Apps. You have a lot of different components that you can use in your application, and you can simply drag and drop these components into the middle of the screen. This is the page that you're going to design. On the right-hand side, you have typically all the possibilities to set the styling, layout, and properties. For example, to change simply the name, as we see it here, to Welcome to Kitesurfer's Paradise on the screen. But of course, we don't want only to design screens. We also want to add some logic. Therefore, we also have a visual application logic builder. You can simply show the logic if you press on the Show Logic button, and it will pop up. And you can see this on the left side of the screen, where you can simply define logic. For example, if you press a button, that a toast message will appear to set some variables. And this is also what we are going to use today to define some logic flows, create some variables, and create some records in our backend to store some data. How is the backend looking like? The backend is called Visual Cloud Functions. In the backend, you have the possibility to easily create data entities, add fields to these data entities. For example, a text field, some numbers, true, false values. So there are different types of fields that you can add. And on top of these data entities, you can even create more entities, what we are calling extended data entities. These are kind of views on the original data entities, but you can enhance the data, for example, with formulas. A very easy example is maybe you have a customer table where you store the first name and last name, and you don't want to store the full name. So you just put an extended entity on top of it that includes a formula that contains the first name and the last name. After you have created your data entities, the last step that you have to do is to deploy your application. And this is really by just clicking one click. You are going to the Deployments tab and say, I want to deploy my application now. And in the background, it will really start a whole infrastructure for you. So it will set up a database. It will create the tables. It will create a service on top of it that can be consumed in the front end that we are going to create. And all you have to do is just to wait some seconds, and then the backend will be available. How does the integration look like? It's really simple. You can just go to the Data tab. You will see there Visual Cloud Functions next to the BTP destinations that we are also supporting. So you can enable a BTP authentication in your application that puts an additional page in front of your application that logs in the user and allows you to use destinations that connects to any SAP system or non-SAP system. And of course, we also have the possibility to still connect to also third-party system via REST APIs or data services. That was already the very short introduction about the key capabilities. And now it's time to create our first application. Today, we are going to create an IT equipment pickup scenario. So what we are going to do is we are creating a backend that stores some product data, how many products are available with the quantity. And additionally, we also will have a data entity there that contains the orders of IT equipment. And we will link these backend data entities with a front end that we are going to create. and I will now directly jump into the system and show you what we are going to do. Let me just change my screen.
Meanwhile, Marc is doing that. I'll have dropped the link to the GitHub in the chat where you can find all the exercises. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And I directly show here the GitHub link, the information that you can use for this exercise. So here's a description, what we are going to do. The first description of the scenario and information how you can register to access the lobby where you are going to create a project. And afterwards, the exercise how to build the backend and also the front end. But maybe let me show you how to register for accessing our lobby. In the exercise, there's the link to the login page that you need. And the first step that you have to do is to press the little register button here at the button. So I will press it now. And the only thing that you have to do is to enter your name and your email address. Press continue. Now I will get an error because I already signed up. In the next step, you just have to set a password. And afterwards, you will receive an email from the identity authentication service where you have to activate your account. After you have activated the account, you can simply go to the lobby and log in. Maybe I can quickly show you how the process is looking like. So you have, as next step, you have to set the password, and then you will get an activation email. And afterwards, you can simply access the lobby with the email address that you have provided. So I will log in now with my email address.
And this environment is specific to this workshop. So everyone has to make a new account and password to complete the exercises in this landscape. The landscape itself will probably stay around for a couple of days, but it will be removed at some point after this workshop. So it's here only for demonstration purposes.
Exactly. So what you can see now on my screen is the lobby, so the central entry point where you're going to create your project. The first step is that you will create your backend. So you just have to create the create button here. Select we want to build an application and select the application backend, give it a name, and then you can finally create a project. I already prepared my backend here. So I will directly jump into the backend. So what you can see now in my backend are that I already created two data entities, one for the product, one for the orders. If you want to see a preview of the data, you can click on Browse Data, and then you can see in my product data, I already included 3 products, a mouse, a keyboard, and a webcam. And one is empty, one does not have any stock. And I also have some orders. My backend is already deployed, so I don't have to do anything further. Let me directly jump into the front end, what you are going to build today. In this workshop, we are really just designing one single page that is connected to the backend that we are going to use. So it's just loading some seconds. Maybe the first of you already started with the exercise and there's some traffic on the sub account. Now we see the front end that I have already created. So we will create this page where you can place your orders. We will include a list item that includes all the products that are available from the backend. We will add some input fields, and we will also add a place order button that contains some logic that finally will create an order to the backend system. How is this page connected to the backend? I simply created here a Visual Cloud Functions connection. So there are my two data entities that shows the order and the product. I can also browse the data here and see, oh, Marc already ordered one product. And finally, after you designed all the application, you can click here on the launch button at the top, and then it will open this page where you can open the preview portal, where you can see how the UI finally looks like in your browser. So I open the web preview here and go into my front end that I've created. And now I can see that two products are in my backend that are available. The second one does not have a quantity, so it will not be shown. I just select the keyboard now, type in a name and place the order. And now an order is placed again and will be visible in the backend. So let me just go back to the orders. And you see here, Max also ordered another product. And I also see the ID of the ordered product that I now could also check in the other table, but it will be a keyboard that will be ordered. And with that, now it's your turn. So you have to go to the GitHub link that we have provided in the chat. Start the self-registration. And you can also, again, read the scenario. But if you want to directly start, go to the self-registration. There you will find a link to the lobby, which is basically also the part where you do the registration. And afterwards, you will find at the end of this page also a link to the first part of the exercise, where it explains step by step what you have to create. And yeah, with that, I wish you a lot of fun creating your first full stack application with SAP Build Apps. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. Okay, I see that more and more people are getting an error while deploying the applications. Okay. You could try two things. So everybody who has an error at the moment, you could try two things. The first thing is that you maybe try to log out. So here at the top, there's a sign out button. Try to sign out and sign in again. So let me just try it. I'm closing all the windows here. And I'm going to sign out. After it's signed out, just try to log in again. And after you're logged in, you could try to open your backend again and try to redeploy it. So if you go to maybe I just do a change and try it by myself. I'm going to add a new entity. And now I try to deploy it. This is our first, or this is a good stress test for the system that so many people try to deploy backends at the same time.
So I'm talking to our technical contact, and lots of people have been successful in deploying, but it seems we have a problem for some, and at least now it's taking a long time. So for now, I think the best course is to try again and see when it starts working. But yeah, we are working on the back end to see if there's something that we can do to expedite this.
I think if it really does not work, what I could also do is to share my backend with everyone, and then it should be usable in the front end part. Then all the people can continue with creating the second part, the front end. This should be also a solution.
Yeah, let's see. I'm talking to our technical contact, and let's see what they say about this matter in a moment. So asking your patience for just a little bit. Thank you.
Meanwhile, I'm trying to answer some of the open questions because there are still a lot of questions. Okay, I also got the same error. But that you can continue with the exercise. I now shared my backend. So all the people that had an error that they are not able to deploy the application, just continue with the second part of the exercise, and you should be able in the front end to see now my Visual Cloud Function entity, because I shared it with all of you in the SAP account. Let me just go into my front end part. And maybe if we have fixed find a solution for the error, you can come back and create your own backend, and then we can just change it afterward.
Yes, I think that makes sense. So you can start with, I think it's from the start of exercise 2, you can do that part, since that will be building the front end application. And then when you get to the integration part, you should be seeing then Marc's already finalized back end. I've just gotten the word that the technical team is looking into this as we speak. So hopefully we'll have a resolution soon. Thank you. And also apologies for the technical difficulties.
But I think, and this is also now a great way that I can show you how easy it is to share some of the components with other users. So you all should be able now to see also my backend called Workshop, and you can use it in the second part. So if you have the error, just continue with the second part of the exercise. Thank you. If you get the information that your deployment was healthy, then it should be usable. So for those who were successfully using, and you can easily try out if it was successful. If you go back to the entities, go to the data browser, and then in the exercise, you're going to create new records in there. So if you can access this site and add products, everything is fine for you. There's one question in the chat, how to define an on-device storage for offline use cases. For those who are interested, I will show it now. So it's the same at the same location where we also have the connection to the Visual Cloud function. So I open the data tab here at the top. And there is directly at the top, there's the way to define on-device storage. So here you could also create a storage that is accessible directly on the device. And here you could define now also fields like we did it in the Visual Cloud functions for the backend. But this is really only then available on the device itself for offline use cases. I'm trying to answer two questions from the chat directly in my system. So one question is, I can't find the create record for the button. So if you want to add the logic create record, you have to open the logic editor. It's here at the button, it says add logic to button. Then you open it. You can also make it a little bit bigger. And the create record is one of the core components that you will find on the left-hand side. So if we are scrolling a bit down, there you should see one element called create record, and you can simply drag and drop it into the logic editor here in the middle, and then you can work with this component. And there's another question. Step 16, then configure this to my product. I guess without looking at it, it's the configuration of the basic list. So if you select the basic list, you need to configure the binding of this table with the data source that we have defined. So I click here on the edit configuration. And afterwards, you are able to connect it to the product coming from the product data entity that is coming from the Visual Cloud function. So you just select it, and then you just connect the elements like it's described in the exercise, add the ID to the ID, the name to the title, define the formula as false, and also define here the formula for the content. And then as a next step, you are going to define the properties. I hope that answers the question. There is one question in the chat. Can you show how to bind the app variable product? For those who are interested in this part, I will explain this now. So what you have to do before, of course, you need to define. So I just switched from view to variables, and I defined a new app variable. So the app variable is available on all pages in an application. Page variables, for example, are only available on one page. So you have to define this product variable, and it's a type, the variable value type is list, and it contains a list of objects. So this is the first requirement, what you have to define here, products with list of objects. If you have done this, we will bind it to the logic. So I'm open the logic for the order button. And what we do is I use the component setApp variable. This is also what you can find here in the core components under the variables, setApp variable. I have to select the variable name, the products that we want to define, and the assigned value you will find under component properties, because we want to use the selected products from the list that is above the button. So I will go to another components property or output value, and we want to use the basic list which contains the information. And here I will select the last one, basic list with selection on the right, because we only want to use the selected items for this products variable. And then I click on save, and that's it. Now the app variable's product is binded to the selected items in this basic list. Hey, there is one question in the chat that is hard to answer, so I will directly show it in the system. The question is there a possibility to add custom components to the marketplace so that corporate apps can be standardized in terms of look and feel? Yes, that's possible. Let me directly show this into the system so that I have more overview. I just create a new page. So what I'm going to do now is just to build a very simple custom component just to show you how you could do it. So what I will use is a container that where I will place some different components to create my new custom component. Let's say I want to have a text box in here, and I also would like to have an input field. Let's also put in a password field. I think that's enough. So what you can see now, here in the tree menu, there's a new container that contains a text field, an input field, and a password field. And now I could customize these fields exactly how I would need it, that I can reuse it in different other components. So what I'm going to do now, I'm here in the settings of this container, and I'm going to convert this container into a new component. So I just press this button and convert it. Now I see I'm in a new menu where I can define the elements of this container. I could also, for example, change here the properties that this container is called. There's the text, input, password, whatever. Here, and I don't want to do anything else in here. So now I will exit, and now I've created a new component that contains these three elements. And you will see that here there's my contain in the install in the by me section here in the components. There's a new container text input password. And what I could do now is to say, okay, I'm going to publish this new component to the marketplace. And I got an error. But basically, this would be one possibility to create a new component that can be reused. I'm really sorry for all of you who are trying to do step 73. I already updated the instruction. There's no error message included anymore in the exercise. I wanted to keep it easier, but I can show you what you can do with the error message. So I'm just going back to the application that we are creating. Now I will go to the logic for the button. And what you could do is, the last step was to include a toast message that the order is placed, and you connected it to the top port of the create record component. This is the successful case. If the system was able to create a record, you can also see the information of this component. If you click on the outputs, and you see on port 1, there is the response, the successful part, and on port 2, there's the error message. So what you could do is, if you already completed the exercise, you could include a second toast message, for example, or let us put an alert, and connect it to the error case of the create record. And here you could then define, for example, maybe a simple error message, or you could also use a formula and say, I want to include the output, the error message of the create record, for example, and include it here for debugging if there's something went wrong. So this is also a good way to have some debugging functionalities in your application. There are a lot of components where you can define the error cases and get also messages what the error really was. So this is what you could also add in step 73, what is not included anymore. So you can simply add an alert or another toast message here and connect it. But in this case, the create record will be always successful, and we will be able to create a record. There's one question. I pressed place order button, however, no message or alert. In this case, I would check if your connection to the toast message is really on the port at the top from the create record. Maybe you have used the error case in your logic, which is the second one. So then you just have to delete the connection between it and just draw the line again to the toast message from the top port of the component. Sure, I will show it again. So the logic is in the place order button. So just simply select the place order button and just scroll to the end where you already included, for the successful case, a toast message. And here you could just simply drag and drop another toast message in there. And you can connect it to the second port of the create record, where we are going to fetch the error of the create record component. And here you can simply just add error as a text in there. And if this component would have an error while creating the record, you would get an error message in here. So that's very simple how you can do it.
Yes. So if you're not familiar with SAP Build Apps or SAP AppGyver before that, the convention is that the success case is the top output, and then outputs below the top one handle things such as error cases. And if there's two outputs, you can pretty much trust for the create record here, it's a success case and then the error case in the second output.
But for all the components, you also find a description what the outputs are. So you just have to change here from properties to outputs. Just select the component, change to outputs. And there you can see the data, what is in the first port, what is in the second port. And this would be also the fields that you could use in, for example, for this error message that we are going to use the information that is described here. There is one question in the chat, how to bind the app variable in step 57. So if you can have a look at the screen, I can show you where you can find it. So you already have the set app variable here in your logic. The first thing what you have to do is to connect it to the products variable name here. And afterwards, you have to click here on this little icon. Maybe it's looking different for you because at the moment it's not selected. And then you have to press here on the components properties. Afterwards, select another components property or output value. And here we want to use all the products that are selected in the basic list at the top. So we select the basic list here. And then I'm going to scroll down to the button because we only want to use the items that are selected. And this is here, selected items, list of objects. And we are going to use this list. We have still some time. There's one question. Is it possible to maintain text in different languages? Maybe I can also use the time and just show it to you directly in the system, or you can try it out by yourself if you want. So that's quite simple. You just have to go back to the variables. So I'm switching from view to variables. And as you can see, we have defined some app variables. And at the bottom there, you can find some translation variables. And the only thing that you have to do is to select the languages that you want to support. Let's say English. And German. I define the fallback language. So the default language that we're going to use, let's say English. And now I could create translation variables for the elements. So for example, let's say the first one is the headline. In English, it was, I think, place your orders. And I just add the translation here. And now I'm going back to the view part, to the headline. And now I'm going to replace this fixed text that we have used with my translation variable. So here I have translation variables, the headline, and I can see, okay, there's these two languages, and I save it. And now the headline is available in 2 languages. So it's really easy to maintain the text here in different languages. There's one more question in the chat. Is it possible to copy the component from one page to another. Yes, and that's really simple. So let's say I would like to use, let's say, this basic text here from my test page that I've created. And the only thing that I'm going to do is press Control-C to copy the component, go to the other page. And let's put it in somewhere, let's say at the button, Control-V. And now this component is copied from the one page to the other.
Maybe, Marc, you can show the BTP authentication quickly.
Yes, I can show it to you, but maybe I have not set up any destination or something on this account. Maybe I'm switching to another BTP account that I can show you the whole process of authentication using destinations. So just give me 1 or 2 more minutes, then I will search for a project that we can use.
I mean, you can show it here because the question was specifically about where do you configure the BTP authentication. So I don't think plus it's 8 minutes to the end, so maybe we don't go into destinations and configuring those. But the easy part is configuring this, so it's.
Yeah, sure. This is what I definitely can show. So this part is really simple. So you just have to click on the authentication tab at the top next to the data tab and click on enable authentication. And there you have 3 possibilities. And one is to activate the BTP authentication. So I'm just going to select this one, say OK. And that's it. Now, an additional page is put in front of this application, which logs in the user. And I can also show you. Here you can see it now has created a new page in my project. And now we would be able to also connect to the BTP destination. But unfortunately, on this account, there is no destination set up. I see somebody changed my service in the background, but that's fine. Maybe I have a look what you have changed. Service version were changed. A customer and also a tryout was added to my service.
Yes, and just to be clear, this BTP authentication is in no way part of the workshop today, but there was a question, and since it's quite quick to show where to configure it, we decided to do that.
I think we are already nearly at the end. So I will just share some additional information. Let me just switch back to my presentation. That's not my presentation. Where is it? There it is. So I also included some more information. If you want to do further trainings, for example, we have a great learning journey, what you can find on learningsap.com. This learning journey also includes some units about business processes itself, about process automation. There's one unit how you can create an SAP Build Apps with some SAP data. So there you can find additional trainings. Also, you're welcome to join our community, the low-code, no-code community, where we're publishing a lot of blogs and where you can find the newest information about our products. We also have some more units and lectures at TechEd. So also today there's another lecture about using Visual Cloud Functions and creating SAP HANA, S4HANA extensions with backend capabilities in SAP Build Apps. There's one session today. And yeah, what else do we have? There are a lot of career opportunities. So if you are checking out the learning on learningsap.com, we also have a certification at the end, so you can get a certified low-code, no-code developer if you're interested. And yeah, feel free to join our learning groups, connect to other participants. And with that, I think we are now already at the end of today's session. Akseli, thank you very much for your support and all the other people that supported this exercise today. If you have any further questions, if you have some ideas for improvements, maybe if you have some use cases in mind that you would like to discuss with us, please feel free to contact us. And with that, Akseli, do you want to say some additional words?
Thank you, Marc, for running the session and showing SAP Build Apps in its various features to everyone. Thank you to the technical team for quickly and efficiently dealing with the issues we faced, and most of all, thank to all you who participated, and I hope you found this interesting and engaging, and see you again. So have a good night and thank you.
Bye-bye.